What if a book could curse you simply by being read? What if words written centuries ago still whispered power beyond the grave? Across continents and centuries, there were texts no one was meant to open. Manuscripts said to summon angels, jinn, even demons. Books locked away, burned, or hidden because their very pages were thought to be alive. Tonight, we turn those pages, from the Nile to medieval Europe, from secret Sufi orders to forgotten Hindu temples. Enter the world of forbidden witchcraft texts, grimoires, spells, and dark knowledge. But to understand how books themselves became feared, we must go back to the very beginning. Long before Europe burned witches, ancient Egypt was already binding magic into ink and papyrus. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, a collection of spells buried with the mummified dead, was no ordinary manuscript. These weren't just words. They were maps for the soul, charms against demons of the underworld, instructions whispered to Osiris himself. To the Egyptians, survival after death was not guaranteed. Only through these sacred formulas could the spirit cross safely into eternity. Every scroll laid beside a corpse was more than parchment. It was protection, power, and prayer rolled into one. Centuries later, the Greeks took this idea further. Hidden in the sands of Egypt and rediscovered by scholars were the Greek magical papyri, a raw, unfiltered record of ancient sorcery. Here, scratched into fragile papyrus, were spells of every kind, incantations to summon gods, rituals to curse an enemy, invocations to bend love and lust, charms to change fate itself. Some required animal sacrifices, others strange mixtures of herbs and blood. These weren't tales told by firelight. They were instructions, step by step, for bending the natural world to human desire. And in this, something new emerged, a dangerous idea, that writing itself could hold magic, that letters, ink, and parchment could trap divine power, waiting for any who dared to read aloud. It was the birth of the grimoire, a book not just of knowledge, but of living, breathing sorcery. As the shadow of the ancient world gave way to the Middle Ages, Europe entered an era where knowledge was hidden behind cathedral walls and superstition lurked in every corner of daily life. Yet, in secret chambers by candlelight, manuscripts were being copied and guarded, texts that promised power far beyond the ordinary prayers of the Church. These were the grimoires of medieval and Renaissance Europe, books that whispered of angels, demons, and the unseen forces of the cosmos. The most famous of all was the Key of Solomon. Attributed, perhaps falsely, to the biblical King Solomon, this text described in painstaking detail how to command spirits and unlock the hidden influence of the stars. Within its pages were mysterious seals and sigils, complex invocations, and rituals tied to the movements of the planets. To its followers, these drawings were not mere symbols. They were doors, each capable of summoning powers that could heal, destroy, or bind. The magician, armed with robes, consecrated tools, and unwavering discipline, would step into a ritual circle, believing they were recreating the wisdom of Solomon himself. Then there was the Book of Abramelin, a manuscript that offered nothing less than contact with one's holy guardian angel. But this was no simple prayer book. The ritual demanded months of preparation, fasting, purity, seclusion, and prayer before the angel could be revealed. And with this angel came the ultimate test, to command and conquer the demonic forces that lurked at the edges of human existence. Failure meant ruin. Success promised divine power and enlightenment. This dangerous balance between angel and demon became a hallmark of Renaissance magic, where seekers risked everything for transcendence. Equally fascinating were the Ars Notoria and the Liber Juratus, texts focused not on commanding spirits, but on transcending human limitations. These books contained angelic invocations designed to grant visions, wisdom, and mastery of the liberal arts. To medieval scholars, they were forbidden shortcuts to knowledge, prayers so potent they might blur the line between holy revelation and heresy. It was said that those who used them could see hidden truths, gain memory that never faded, and speak with tongues unlearned. Yet such gifts always came at a cost, and the Church eyed these texts with suspicion, branding them as dangerous temptations. And finally, there was the Picatrix, a sprawling encyclopedia of Arabic occult philosophy, translated into Latin and quietly circulated among Europe's elite. It was unlike anything the West had seen before, a text blending astrology, talismans, and magical theory, merging science, mysticism, and ritual into a single framework. The Picatrix brought the wisdom of the Islamic Golden Age into Europe's secret libraries, reshaping Renaissance thought and laying the foundations for what would later be called Western occultism. These books were not copied by scribes in the open light of day. They were whispered about in darkened rooms, traded in secret, and often hidden beneath layers of false titles or disguised as harmless prayer books. To the curious, they were gateways to the divine and the demonic alike. To the Church, they were a threat, books that could unravel the delicate balance between heaven and hell. And so, as Europe turned its gaze toward the stars and the mysteries of the unseen, these grimoires multiplied, weaving a hidden tradition of forbidden wisdom. Each page carried the weight of secrecy and the promise of power. Yet even the grimoires of Europe pale beside a stranger, darker category of texts, the so-called Devil's Manuscripts, books whose very existence seems like a warning. These are not simply manuals of ritual, but objects shrouded in legend, their origins and purposes still puzzling scholars and occultists alike. Foremost among them is the colossal Codex Gigas, often called the Devil's Bible. This single volume, nearly a meter tall and weighing over 70 kilograms, is the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world. According to legend, it was created by a single monk condemned to death for breaking his vows. In desperation, he promised to produce, in one night, a book that would contain all human knowledge and glorify his monastery. When he realized the task was impossible, he invoked the devil himself, offering his soul in exchange for supernatural assistance. By dawn, the Codex was complete, its pages filled with the Old and New Testaments, medical treatises, exorcism rites, and strange texts of magic and penitence. At its heart lies an eerie, full-page portrait of the devil, glaring out at the reader as though claiming ownership of the work. Even today, this massive book sits behind glass in the National Library of Sweden, its presence almost otherworldly, as if the ink still carries a hidden pact. If the Codex Gigas is a monument to known scripture, the Voynich Manuscript is its mirror, a book of pure mystery. Discovered in the early 20th century, but dated to the early 1400s, it is written in an unknown script that no one has yet deciphered. Its pages are filled with impossible plants, strange naked figures immersed in green liquids, astronomical wheels, and diagrams that seem to blend botany, alchemy, and astrology. Cryptographers from World War II codebreakers to modern AI have tried to crack its language. All have failed. Some scholars argue it is a hoax, others that it is an encrypted grimoire, a secret magical text whose knowledge remains sealed by its creator. The manuscript exerts a peculiar pull, beautiful, impenetrable, and quietly unsettling, as though its pages are meant to be seen but not understood. Books like the Codex Gigas and the Voynich Manuscript stand at the edge of human comprehension. They are relics of an age when knowledge, religion, and superstition blurred into a single force, when the written word could be both a prayer and a spell, a blessing and a curse. Even now, centuries later, their legends linger, haunting libraries and museums, whispering of deals with the devil and secrets no one can read. From the echoing monasteries of Europe, our path now turns east, across deserts and minarets, to the heart of the Islamic world, where faith and scholarship flourished side by side. The Quran was revered as divine revelation, yet alongside the sacred sciences, there emerged another, more secretive stream of literature. Texts of talismans, numbers, and spirits, copied and guarded in the shadows. These were not public books for the market stalls. They were copied by hand, whispered about in secret, and feared as much as they were desired. The most notorious of them all is Shams al-Ma'arif al-Kubra, the great son of knowledge. Attributed to the 13th century Sufi mystic Ahmad al-Buni. On its surface, it is a dense compendium of letters, numbers, and invocations, but within its pages are the arcana of Islamic occultism, magic squares whose numerical patterns are said to bend unseen forces, the names of angels and jinn arranged in talismanic forms, seals and prayers meant to heal, to protect, or to command. Its readers believed that if approached with purity and discipline, the book could unlock powerful spiritual secrets, but that to misuse it would bring disaster. In Muslim societies, Shams al-Ma'arif has always been a paradox. Many scholars condemn it outright as haram, forbidden magic, a path to ruin. Others preserve it as a rare curiosity, too dangerous to study, yet too potent to destroy. Stories circulate of readers struck by misfortune, of copies that seem to vanish or burn on their own, of rituals gone horribly wrong. Even its title carries a warning. The sun illuminates, but it also scorches. Around it grew a constellation of other Islamic occult texts, treatises on the Ilm al-Huruf, science of letters, manuals of talismanic astrology, and compendia of angelic invocations. Some, like the Arabic Hayat al-Hakam, known in Latin as the Picatrix, would cross into Europe, translated and studied in secret by Renaissance magi hungry for the wisdom of the East. Through these books, Arabic and Persian occult sciences reshaped European magic, blending with Christian and Jewish mysticism to create a truly global underground tradition. Even in worlds built on strict religious law, the human hunger for hidden knowledge could not be silenced. In mosque libraries, caravan cities, and desert monasteries, scribes continued to copy these works, each page a risky bridge between devotion and transgression. And so, from the sand-worn libraries of the Islamic world, our journey flows further east, into the subcontinent, where an entirely different but equally potent tradition of hidden knowledge took form. Here, in the lands of ancient kingdoms and sprawling temple cities, texts were not merely prayers or philosophical debates. They were living repositories of secret sciences. Ritual, astronomy, sexuality, medicine, and magic all intertwined, encoded in Sanskrit and regional languages, often veiled in metaphor to protect their meaning from the uninitiated. Among these rare works, whispered about more than openly cited, is the Koka Shastra, sometimes called Koka Pinned in obscure references. Attributed to a sage named Koka Pandit, this text moves far beyond the familiar outlines of the Kama Shastra tradition. It blends tantric practice, astrology, sexual rites, and esoteric healing into a single manual. In its verses, bodily union is treated not merely as desire, but as a ritual act, a way of channeling cosmic forces. Charts of stars and planetary hours sit beside instructions for charms, protective mantras, and formulas meant to influence health, fertility, or fortune. Like so many forbidden texts elsewhere, its pages present a seamless weave of the physical and the mystical, one that promises power but demands secrecy and discipline. This is only one glimpse into a much broader landscape. Across South Asia, especially within tantric and Aghori lineages, knowledge was passed through palm leaf manuscripts, temple carvings, and coded verses. Techniques of mantra, yantra, sacred diagrams, alchemy, and planetary magic were recorded in cryptic ways, accessible only to initiates. Some texts promise siddhis, extraordinary abilities like clairvoyance, healing, or control over subtle energies, while others mapped entire cosmologies invisible to the ordinary eye. Like the Grimoires of Europe or the talismanic books of the Islamic world, these South Asian works demonstrate a universal impulse to trap hidden forces within the permanence of writing. The difference is that in India, the occult was often braided into mainstream ritual and philosophy rather than cast out as pure heresy. Yet the secrecy remained. Manuscripts were guarded by guru lineages, copied sparingly, and often destroyed rather than allowed to fall into the wrong hands. And so, as our journey threads from Egyptian papyri to European grimoires, from Sufi talismans to tantric palm leaf manuscripts, one truth begins to shimmer through the centuries. The book itself became a vessel of power. In a world where most people could not read, to write and to read was already a mark of privilege. And when that literacy touched upon spirits, planets, and secret names, it became something more, a weapon cloaked in paper. Across civilizations, rulers and priests understood that knowledge equals power, and power in the wrong hands could unmake order. A single text could teach a peasant how to charm a lord, or a rival scholar how to summon forces the authorities could not control. And so, grimoires, magical papyri, talismanic manuals, and coded treatises were hunted almost as relentlessly as heretics themselves. Some were publicly burned, their ashes scattered as a warning. Others were quietly confiscated, sealed in locked chests, or hidden deep in monastery vaults and royal archives where only a few ever saw their pages again. This fear wasn't only about the content, it was about the aura of the book, the sense that the ink and symbols were alive, that a page of sigils could act like a loaded charm even without being spoken aloud. In medieval Europe, certain manuscripts were wrapped in chains or nailed shut. In the Islamic world, tales spread of Shams al-Ma'arif copies that brought calamity to their owners. In India, esoteric palm leaf manuscripts were ritually purified before being opened, as if they could spill power like blood. To those who revered them, these were not mere stacks of parchment, but living objects, repositories of spirits, planetary forces, or divine names. To touch them carelessly was to risk contagion, not of disease, but of fate. Like swords, they could protect or destroy depending on the hand that wielded them. This is why, century after century, texts of magic were both feared and desired. burned and hidden, cursed and sought. And it is from this paradox, the book as both doorway and danger, that our modern image of the forbidden text emerges, shaping everything from Gothic novels to horror films, where the grimoire waits in a dusty attic, daring someone to open it. Through the shadows of time, one truth has remained constant. Witchcraft is not only ritual performed in the dark, nor whispers cast into the night. It is knowledge, captured and preserved in ink, bound into fragile pages that somehow survived centuries of fire, fear, and secrecy. From the Egyptian papyri to the grimoires of Europe, from the Shams al-Ma'arif of the Islamic world to the hidden tantric texts of India, these manuscripts did more than guide their readers. They shaped how entire civilizations imagined magic itself. Even now, their legacy lingers. When we picture a forbidden book, chained in a monastery or hidden in an old chest, we are seeing the shadows of these very works. They created the blueprint of forbidden knowledge, where words can wound, symbols can summon, and a single page may alter destiny. But the question remains, would you dare open one of these books? Or do you believe that some knowledge, once written, is better left unread? Tell us what you think in the comments. Your thoughts, your fears, and your curiosity are as much a part of this story as the manuscripts themselves, and our journey is far from over. The pages we've turned tonight are only the beginning of a much larger story. Witchcraft, as it unfolded across continents and centuries. Beyond these grimoires lie other worlds of shamans, healers, and hidden rites, where spirits walk, ancestors whisper, and the boundary between the living and the dead grows thin. Stay with us as we continue to unearth these shadows. The next chapter of this mystery is waiting.